For centuries, Easter Island has kept its secrets hidden beneath silent stone faces. But when archaeologists began excavating under the Moai, they uncovered a truth so startling it completely rewrote everything we thought we knew about this mysterious island. Hidden bodies, sacred pigments, secret chambers, living eyes, and a lost writing system point to a civilization far more advanced and powerful than anyone imagined. The deeper they dug, the stranger the story became. The hidden bodies of the Moai. For many years, most people believed the stone figures on Easter Island were just giant heads. Images in textbooks and magazines typically showed tall faces jutting out of the ground, with no visible bodies. Visitors from all over the world stood before these stone faces, wondering who had built them and why they looked inland rather than out to sea. No one imagined that something much larger lay buried beneath the soil. The truth remained hidden for centuries until a group of archaeologists made a discovery that completely changed what the world thought about Easter Island. In 2010, a team led by Dr. Joanne van Tilburg began carefully excavating around the famous statues. They hoped to confirm the long-held belief that only heads had been carved. However, as they removed the earth and stones around the figures, they found something completely unexpected. The statues had complete bodies, buried so deep that only their heads remained visible. These bodies had been covered by layers of earth for hundreds of years until the excavation revealed their true form. Gradually, more of the statues appeared. First the shoulders, then the chests, and finally the long arms resting on the stomachs. Some bodies extended up to 30 feet into the ground. These hidden bodies held secrets that no one had ever seen before. With beautifully preserved engravings buried underground, symbols like spirals, crescent moons, and other sacred forms covered their stone skin, telling stories about the people who made the Moai and the traditions they followed. The burial of the bodies had protected these works from wind, rain, and sun, and each engraving looked freshly made despite being centuries old. The discoveries didn't end there. The team realized that the placement of the statues wasn't random. Each Moai faced inland villages, not the ocean, as if the statues had the function of watching over and protecting the people. This detail reinforces the idea that the Moai were not only works of art, but also spiritual guardians of the community. As the excavation continued, archaeologists found large red stone hats called pukao, representing the top knots worn by powerful chiefs. The larger the hat, the higher the status of the person the statue honored. The red stone came from another part of the island, demonstrating that the inhabitants transported heavy materials from afar, requiring planning, teamwork, and strong leadership. At the base of several statues, archaeologists found stone tools such as picks and chisels, seemingly abandoned suddenly, as if the workers had stopped working and never returned. Their tools remained where they last placed them, adding another mystery. What interrupted their work? Some statues had eye sockets that once held white coral eyes with pupils of black stone or red scoria, which would have given the statues the appearance of living, watchful figures. This explains ancient accounts from the islanders that their ancestors watched over them through the Moai. The discovery of the hidden bodies proved that the islanders were not simply people making simple carvings. They were skilled artists, engineers, and planners who created enormous monuments with profound spiritual significance. Their knowledge of stone carving, engineering, and symbolism was far more advanced than expected. But this was only the first layer of secrets beneath Easter Island. As archaeologists continued their work, they found something even more perplexing: the red pigment pits. In 2011, another team discovered dozens of pits filled with bright red pigment near the Rongorongo quarry, where many Moai were carved. These pits, hidden under stones and untouched for centuries, surprised researchers with their intense color, which appeared fresh despite their age. The pigment was made from minerals such as hematite and magamite, creating a strong red. In Polynesian culture, red symbolizes power, life, energy, and spiritual strength. The islanders, they used it to paint statues, ceremonial objects, and even their bodies during important rituals. The fact that the pigment was stored with such care demonstrates its enormous ceremonial value. Each pit was carefully lined with stones and covered with a tight-fitting lid, showing that they were part of an organized system. Hundreds of statues were painted multiple times, indicating that the population remained active and organized even after the supposed disappearance of the forests around 1400. The pigment also reveals information about leadership and social structure, showing coordinated work under a system of responsibility that included miners, artists, transporters, and ceremonial leaders. This cooperation demonstrates that the community was highly organized even centuries later. The discovery of the pigment pits forced archaeologists to rethink the history of Easter Island. The inhabitants were not collapsing. They were still thriving and creating powerful symbols. However, the presence of this sacred material raises new questions. If the islanders continued their traditions for so long, what else might be hidden beneath the island to reveal even more secrets about their past? Not long after, archaeologists began exploring beneath the stone platforms where the Moai stood. What they found there was even more surprising than the pigment pits and offered new insights into who the islanders were and how they honored their ancestors. The secret underground chambers. As archaeologists continued their explorations on Easter Island, they noticed that several Moai platforms, known as ahu, appeared to rest on carefully constructed spaces. When they began excavating beneath these platforms, they discovered something extraordinary. Beneath the surface lay secret burial chambers that had remained sealed for many centuries. These chambers revealed a different side of Easter Island's culture and showed that the islanders honored their dead with great skill and respect. The underground chambers were constructed with impressive craftsmanship. The stones were fitted together perfectly without cement or mortar, preventing water from seeping in during heavy rains. The builders carved solid rock to create rooms that would last for centuries, ensuring they would withstand earthquakes common in the Pacific region. Their engineering prowess astonished modern researchers who realized that the islanders were far more advanced than previously thought. Inside these chambers, archaeologists found the remains of important individuals. They were not ordinary people. The placement of the remains and the objects found alongside them indicated that these individuals held high status in society, likely chiefs, priests, and master artisans. The objects buried with them supported this idea. Obsidian tools made of volcanic glass, extremely sharp and valuable, and shell jewelry from distant islands, demonstrating that the islanders had connections to the wider Pacific world. Wooden objects carved with patterns and symbols depicting important stories or events were also found. Since wood decomposes easily over time, the presence of these carvings within sealed chambers helped preserve them, allowing researchers to study objects that would normally have vanished centuries ago. One of the most interesting discoveries was that some chambers contained the remains of several generations of the same family. This showed that certain bloodlines held a special place in the community. Families passed down leadership roles or spiritual responsibilities from generation to generation. The chambers served as sacred spaces to protect and honor their ancestors with great care. The chambers also helped solve a long-standing mystery about the niches found on the platforms near the statues. These small, carved spaces were thought to have multiple uses. However, archaeologists discovered that they were designed to hold offerings to the ancestors buried below, including food, water, and small ceremonial objects. The islanders believed that caring for the ancestors brought protection and blessings to the living. The presence of red pigment in many burial chambers connected these discoveries to previous findings. This showed that the same sacred red pigment used on the statues also played a role in honoring the dead, demonstrating how spiritual the islanders were and how their rituals involved color symbolism and careful preparation. The underground chambers demonstrated that Easter Island civilization was complex, intelligent, and highly organized. They constructed both visible monuments and hidden spaces that required advanced engineering and meticulous planning. Their culture was neither simple nor primitive. It was structured and profoundly meaningful. The revelation of the coral eyes. In 1978, an archaeologist named Sergio Rapu began studying various fragments of white material scattered at different Moai sites. At first, they appeared to be ordinary stones, but their smooth texture and shape caught his attention. By gathering more pieces and examining them carefully, he made a discovery that would transform how the world viewed the Moai statues. The fragments were parts of giant coral eyes that fit perfectly into the statues' eye sockets. With this, the statues ceased to be silent stone faces and became living monuments watching over the island. For centuries, visitors had seen the Moai as expressionless figures with empty eye sockets. They seemed mysterious but lifeless. However, the coral eyes revealed that the Moai once had bright white eyes with black obsidian pupils, or red pupils, carved from volcanic rock. When the eyes were placed back in their sockets, the statues appeared awake and alert, reflecting the sunlight and giving the impression that they were observing everything around them. This discovery explained why the Moai were oriented towards the interior of the island, towards the villages, and not toward the ocean. The coral eyes allowed the statues to watch over and protect the people. During ceremonies, the eyes would have shone brightly, creating a powerful spiritual presence. The islanders believed their ancestors were present in the statues, and the coral eyes reinforced that belief, making the Moai appear alive in the sunlight. Carving them was difficult, as each pair of eyes had to fit precisely on its corresponding statue, requiring skill, patience, and knowledge of the behavior of coral and stone. It is believed that a group of specialized artisans created these eyes, understanding both the artistic and spiritual significance of giving the Moai sight. The installation of the eyes was the final step in completing a statue. First, the Moai was carved in the quarry, then transported across the island using a complex method still debated by researchers. Once on its platform, the Moai was raised upright, and only then were the eyes inserted, symbolizing the activation of the spirit within the statue. Once installed, the Moai truly came to life. Not all statues received coral eyes. This honor was reserved for the most important ancestors, or for statues located at sacred sites, creating a hierarchy among the Moai. Some stood watch, alert and alive, while others remained with empty sockets, reflecting the social strata of the community. The coral eyes represented power and spiritual presence. The discovery also connected with oral traditions that described the Moai as observers of people's actions. For years, scholars dismissed these stories as myths, but the coral eyes proved the islanders were telling the truth. The eyes were real, and part of a tradition that transformed stone figures into spiritual guardians. This finding revealed that the world had only seen a small part of the Moai story. The statues were not just monuments, but living symbols of the ancestors who protected the island. However, the next discovery would show that the islanders had created something even more mysterious, a unique writing system, unparalleled in the entire Pacific. The mystery of the Rongorongo script. In 1864, a French missionary named Eugène Hérault made a discovery that astonished the academic world. While collecting artifacts on Easter Island, he found several wooden tablets covered with strange symbols. These symbols did not resemble any writing found elsewhere in the Pacific. The islanders called the tablets Rongorongo, which meant to sing or recite. The tablets were more than just decorated pieces of wood. They contained a writing system so unique and mysterious that it remains undeciphered to this day. The symbols on the tablets were arranged in orderly rows. The writing followed a style known as boustrophedon, meaning that one line was read from left to right and the next from right to left, creating a wavy flow across the surface of the wood. The symbols included shapes of birds, plants, fish, animals, people, and abstract designs. Some symbols appeared frequently, while others were rare, suggesting that the writing was complex and represented different types of information, such as names, events, or rituals. One of the most astonishing facts about Rongorongo is that Easter Island was the only place in all of Polynesia where a writing system developed before the arrival of Europeans. No other island in the region, including Hawaii, Tahiti, and New Zealand, had an indigenous written language. This made the Rongorongo tablets incredibly valuable to archaeologists, as they demonstrated that Easter Island had a highly developed culture capable of recording information in writing. The tablets were beautifully crafted. The wood was carefully carved using simple tools, such as shark teeth and obsidian blades. Some of the wood came from trees that no longer grew on the island, indicating that the tablets were either very old or made from driftwood that traveled long distances before reaching the shore. By the time Europeans arrived, very few islanders could read the tablets. Knowledge of the writing was fading. Some elders remembered fragments of the tradition, but they were unwilling to share everything with outsiders, believing the symbols held sacred meaning. This secrecy made it even harder for modern scholars to understand the tablets. Researchers have spent more than 150 years trying to decipher Rongorongo, but no one has fully succeeded. Some believe the tablets record contain genealogies of important families, while others think they contain religious chants or astronomical observations. There are also theories suggesting they narrate migration stories and the island's history. Their true meaning remains hidden behind symbols that no one alive fully understands. Islanders familiar with some of the lore said the tablets weren't read silently like a book. A trained singer would hold the tablet and use the symbols as memory aids while reciting long oral stories. In this way, Rongorongo combined writing and oral tradition, with the symbols acting as guides that stimulated the storyteller's memory. This made Rongorongo unique in the world. While scholars struggled to understand the tablet's messages, archaeologists found evidence of a significant cultural transformation. Something caused people to stop building Moai and focus on a completely different religious system, a powerful, dramatic, and sudden shift. The rise of the Birdman cult. Around 1400, something significant happened on Easter Island. People began to abandon the construction of new Moai statues. The quarries were left with unfinished figures. The old system of ancestor worship was gradually replaced by a new religious belief centered on the figure known as the Birdman. This shift shaped the island for centuries and left clear archaeological evidence of how society transformed. The center of the Birdman religion was a ceremonial village called Orongo, located on the edge of the Rongorongo volcano, overlooking 3 small nearby islands. Archaeologists discovered 53 stone houses at this location, with unique roofs made of overlapping stone slabs forming a sturdy, curved structure. These were not ordinary dwellings, but special shelters used only during ceremonies. The walls of Orongo were covered with more than 480 stone carvings depicting Birdman figures, human bodies with bird heads, and images of Makemake, the island's creator god. The carvings depicted rituals, scenes, and symbols of power. The islanders used stone tools to carve these images into the hard volcanic surface, a process that required patience and skill. The most important event in the Birdman cult was an annual competition. Each year, representatives from different clans gathered on Orongo. The test was perilous. They had to descend a steep cliff, swim through sharks to the island of Motunui, and bring back the first egg of a migratory bird called the sooty tern. Whoever returned with the first egg brought great honor to their clan, and their sponsor received the title of Birdman of the Year, gaining control over important resources and political power. Archaeological findings support these accounts. Tools such as obsidian knives and spear points have been found around Orongo, along with bird bones and eggshell fragments, indicating that the ceremonies involved rituals related to the bird and its egg. All of this aligns with the island's oral traditions. The rise of the Birdman cult represented a shift in leadership. Power was no longer inherited solely through lineage, but earned through bravery and skill. This transformation may have been driven by environmental pressures and resource scarcity. Furthermore, similar symbols found elsewhere in Polynesia suggest that the islanders sought to reconnect with shared Pacific traditions. Revelations about DNA, population, and the modern archaeological revolution. For many years, scholars believed that Easter Island suffered an ecological disaster long before the arrival of Europeans. According to ancient theories, the islanders cut down all their trees, leading to the collapse of their society. This was claimed to have resulted in famine, warfare, and even cannibalism. However, new DNA evidence combined with recent archaeological discoveries reveals a completely different story. The true collapse did not occur until outsiders arrived on the island. For centuries, Easter Islanders lived in a stable society until an external disaster disrupted their world. DNA studies of ancient bones show that the island's population remained healthy for many generations. The inhabitants maintained strong community structures and continued to build monuments and hold ceremonies long after the forests disappeared. Archaeological evidence supports this. Tools, settlements, and agricultural systems dating from between 1200 and 1600 show no signs of chaos or conflict. On the contrary, the islanders adapted to their environment and continued their traditions. The real disaster began in 1722, when European explorers arrived on the island, bringing diseases such as smallpox and tuberculosis. The islanders had no immunity to these diseases, and entire families died within short periods. The social structure began to weaken, and the situation worsened during the 19th century. Between 1862 and 1863, Peruvian slave traders arrived on the island, kidnapping more than 1,400 islanders, almost half the population. Many of those captured were leaders, priests, or people with important knowledge, such as reading the Rongorongo tablets. Most died in slavery, and the few who returned brought smallpox, which spread rapidly and killed most of the survivors. By 1877, only 111 survivors remained on Easter Island, a shocking loss of 96% of the population. Many traditions disappeared in a single generation, as few elders survived to teach the young. The ability to read was lost. Rongorongo, the methods for the techniques for carving and transporting the Moai were forgotten, and many rituals disappeared. This cultural collapse was sudden and tragic, caused by external forces, not by the islanders. Despite this devastation, DNA studies show that the remaining islanders rebuilt their community, preserving their Polynesian heritage. They did not mix extensively with outsiders, but relied on their small group to keep their identity alive, demonstrating remarkable resilience and determination. Modern archaeology has now entered a new era on Easter Island. Researchers are using advanced technology that allows them to uncover secrets without disturbing the ground. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed previously unknown structures buried beneath the island. Satellite imagery has exposed ancient roads, terraces, and settlements that were invisible until now. Three-dimensional laser scanning of the Moai has created detailed digital models that show every mark on the stone. The Easter Island Statue Project continues to excavate buried Moai and document what lies beneath them. To date, more than 150 statues have been studied, and hundreds more remain buried. New discoveries are made every year. Computer models help researchers understand how the statues were carved, moved, and erected. Each new technique adds another piece to the puzzle. These modern discoveries show that the story of Easter Island is not one of collapse, but of achievement, creativity, and survival. The islanders adapted to challenges, built incredible monuments, and preserved their culture under extreme pressure. Their story is far richer and more complex than the world once thought. Even today, many mysteries remain hidden beneath the surface. Many statues are still buried, numerous structures remain unexplored, and the meaning of the Rongorongo script remains locked. The story of Easter Island continues to unfold with each new find waiting to be revealed. Which of these discoveries surprised you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments.